talking about maps that were drawn roughly between the 1300s and the 1700s. However, these maps were largely based on much older source maps.
When Graham Hancock presented what he claimed to be the original world map, it immediately stirred waves of intrigue, curiosity, and unease across multiple fields. This was not the kind of carefully standardized projection taught in geography classes or the satellite-verified renderings dominating modern atlases. Instead, it was a depiction rooted in ancient memory, carved with knowledge that seemed impossible for early civilizations to possess. The unveiling carried with it an air of secrecy, the sense that something long hidden from public view was finally stepping into the light. Hancock did not frame it as a mere artifact. He revealed it as a key, a challenge to everything we think we know about the origins of global exploration, navigation, and even the distribution of humanity's earliest cultures. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The very concept of an original world map shakes the foundations of historical narrative. Conventional history teaches that our ancestors built their understanding of geography in fragments, with each society slowly sketching coastlines, mountains, and seas as they encountered them. The cumulative effort over centuries was said to culminate in what we recognize as global cartography. Yet Hancock's presentation suggested otherwise, that there was once a coherent, precise rendering of Earth that predates much of recorded civilization. If accurate, this map points to the existence of a highly advanced culture capable of not just exploration, but measurement, astronomy, and an uncanny awareness of planetary features thousands of years before mainstream history acknowledges such capabilities. The moment he laid out the reproduction, one of the most striking features was the uncanny accuracy of coastlines that modern scholars believed were discovered only within the last half-millennium. Antarctica appeared not as the frozen wasteland buried beneath ice, but as an exposed landmass with rivers, mountains, and contours largely confirmed by 20th century seismic surveys. South America, Africa, and Eurasia were outlined with astonishing fidelity, suggesting not just localized coastal exploration, but a global vantage point. It was as though whoever drew this original chart had the ability to see Earth in its entirety, unbound by the limitations of wooden ships, primitive compasses, or guesswork navigation. What makes the revelation particularly staggering is the implication that the civilizations we often label as primitive or emerging were operating with a foundation of knowledge passed down from a forgotten source. The map seemed to whisper of a time before the time we know, when a group of people with advanced techniques in astronomy and geometry compiled a planetary chart and then dispersed fragments of this knowledge to cultures around the world. Hancock's broader work has long revolved around this thesis, that a lost civilization predating the recognized cradles of culture transmitted seeds of wisdom, from megalithic architecture to myths of floods and cosmic cycles. The map functions as one of the most tangible pieces of evidence for this radical reinterpretation of human history. Beyond its accuracy, the design elements themselves were puzzling. Rivers traced across continents that in historical cartography had not yet been imagined. Archipelagos were placed with precision, some of which are submerged today, indicating a memory of coastlines that existed during a lower sea level epoch. These details point back to the end of the last ice age, when glaciers melted, sea levels rose, and coastal settlements were swallowed by the ocean. That time frame, roughly 12,000 years ago, corresponds eerily with myths of global floods found in disparate traditions from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica. The alignment is too sharp to dismiss. It suggests that whoever first conceived the map was recording a world that no longer exists in the same form, giving us not just geography, but a snapshot of Earth's transitional state between ages. As the audience absorbed the image, the implications became harder to ignore. If true, it rewrites the entire progression of exploration. The accepted model suggests the Phoenicians, Greeks, and later Islamic scholars were at the forefront of mapping known regions, their works pieced together incrementally by Renaissance explorers like Columbus and Magellan. But the presence of a map so advanced implies that later civilizations were not discovering but rediscovering, inheriting remnants of a greater tradition whose full origins were obscured by cataclysm. In other words, much of recorded history may be built upon a scaffolding of forgotten genius that humanity has only partially recovered. The geopolitical consequences of such a revelation cannot be overstated. Knowledge is power, and control of maps has always been control of the world. Empires rose and fell on their navigational charts, and the secrecy around them was fierce. That a document of this magnitude could have been deliberately hidden or ignored makes sense in the context of maintaining certain narratives. To acknowledge that the roots of global navigation extend thousands of years beyond accepted records would unsettle the foundations of academic, political, and even religious authority. The guardians of official history, whether institutions or governments, have vested interests in stability. A revelation of this scale is disruptive, reshaping not only how we view the past, but how we understand human potential. Perhaps even more profound is what the map suggests about human interconnectedness. If an ancient culture possessed this knowledge, it must have traveled, traded, or communicated across vast distances. The myth that early peoples were isolated and ignorant of lands beyond their immediate borders collapses in the face of such evidence. Instead, it hints at a global culture, or at least a network of civilizations linked through maritime skill and shared astronomical understanding. This lends new weight to the similarities between myths, symbols, and architectural traditions found across continents. The pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Mesoamerica, the megaliths of Europe, all may be distant echoes of a unified worldview encoded in both stone and map. Hancock's presentation did not rely on hyperbole. The map spoke for itself. Yet the reaction it provoked revealed the deep divide between conventional scholarship and alternative perspectives. For historians and archaeologists, to accept the map at face value would mean conceding that their entire framework for human development is incomplete. For others, it becomes a beacon of possibility, a reminder that the human story is far more layered and mysterious than textbooks allow. Either way, the map refuses to be dismissed. Its existence challenges everyone to grapple with the uncomfortable reality that history is not a straight line but a palimpsest, with layers of memory and knowledge erased, overwritten, and occasionally revealed anew. The astronomical precision encoded in the map raises additional questions. To plot coastlines so accurately requires more than travel. It demands mathematical systems, tools of measurement, and a grasp of the Earth's curvature. Did this lost culture understand longitude and latitude long before modern instruments? Did they use the stars not just as guides for navigation, but as coordinates in a planetary system? Such sophistication implies an intellectual infrastructure as impressive as any visible monument. The fact that no obvious physical remains of this culture have yet been found only deepens the enigma. It suggests that much of their legacy lies hidden under ocean waves or buried beneath layers of time. Speculation arises naturally. If this knowledge once existed, how did it vanish? Catastrophe offers one answer. The end of the last ice age was a time of dramatic upheaval, with floods and climate shifts devastating ecosystems and human populations alike. Entire settlements could have been obliterated, their libraries reduced to ruin, their wisdom carried only by survivors who encoded fragments into myth and ritual. The map, in this reading, is not just a geographical record, but a survivor itself, a fossil of knowledge preserved against overwhelming odds. Its rediscovery through Hancock's efforts is thus a kind of resurrection, a reminder that even in destruction, pieces of truth endure. The cultural implications ripple outward. Myths that have long been relegated to metaphor take on new weight when aligned with such physical evidence. Stories of great teachers, flood survivors, or gods who traverse the seas may be distorted memories of real people carrying forward fragments of lost knowledge. The map could be the missing link between oral tradition and physical reality, grounding symbolic tales in a literal representation of Earth as it once was. This convergence of myth and measurement forces a re-evaluation of the boundary between legend and history. It is also worth considering the psychological impact of Hancock's revelation. To confront a map that suggests a hidden epic of advanced human culture is to confront the limitations of our own perspective. We are conditioned to believe in progress as linear, that we stand at the pinnacle of knowledge. Yet the existence of such a map undermines this certainty. It suggests that cycles of rise and fall may be the true rhythm of civilization, that humanity may have soared before and been brought low, only to climb again. This cyclical vision is unsettling but also empowering. reminding us that what has been achieved once can be achieved again and perhaps surpassed. The event itself was charged with energy not because Hancock demanded belief, but because he held up a mirror. The map reflected back to humanity its forgotten self, the possibility that we are heirs to a legacy far grander than we realize. That no one wants you to see it only amplifies its power, for suppression is often the measure of significance. If it were meaningless, it would be ignored. The fact that it provokes controversy, denial, and fascination in equal measure proves that it touches a nerve at the core of our collective identity. The deeper one studies the contours of the map, the more it becomes clear that this is not merely a curiosity but a challenge. It calls on scientists to re-examine data with fresh eyes, on historians to reconsider the scaffolding of their timelines, on everyday individuals to expand their imagination of the past. Whether one accepts Hancock's interpretation fully or not, the map cannot be unseen. It has entered the conversation, and with it the possibility that the story of humanity is far older, richer, and stranger than we dared to think. Its implications stretch beyond academia into philosophy and spirituality. To acknowledge that humanity once held a complete vision of the world but lost it is to acknowledge the fragility of knowledge itself. It raises questions about what other truths might lie buried, what wisdom might yet resurface. In a world grappling with crises of identity, environment, and meaning, the idea that our ancestors once perceived Earth as a whole, interconnected system offers both humility and guidance. It suggests that our fragmentation is not inevitable, that wholeness is part of our heritage. As Hancock concluded his presentation, the weight of the moment lingered. The original world map he revealed was not just ink on parchment, but a message across millennia. It told us that humanity is more than its recent history, that we are part of a cycle of remembrance and forgetting. It told us that hidden beneath the official narratives are treasures of knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. And it told us that the boundaries of possibility are far wider than the guardians of orthodoxy would have us believe. When the original world map revealed by Graham Hancock was laid out in full, what resonated most was not just its physical detail, but the intellectual horizon it opened. The image was a shockwave that rippled through imagination, because for the first time people could contemplate that an ancient civilization not only charted the planet, but possessed an outlook that transcended what we normally ascribe to early humanity. It was a demonstration of perspective, as though those unknown mapmakers were not simply recording coastlines and rivers, but encoding their very worldview. In this sense, the artifact was both a technical marvel and a philosophical mirror, reflecting a vision of Earth as a unified sphere of life rather than a scattering of isolated territories. The artistry of the map was also striking. It was not a crude sketch, nor a utilitarian navigational chart. It carried an elegance of form, symmetry, and proportion, as though aesthetics were just as important as accuracy. This invites speculation about the culture that produced it. A society that could create such a synthesis of beauty and function must have placed value on balance, on harmony between science and art. In many ways, that ethos contrasts with modern tendencies, where data is often stripped of aesthetic dimension. The map suggests a civilization that did not separate the measurable from the meaningful, but wove them together into a coherent worldview. At the same time, there was an aura of sacredness about the design. Certain lines and geometric patterns hinted at astronomical alignments, possibly incorporating solstice paths, equinox markers, or even cycles of precession. If true, this reveals that the map was not merely a geographical record, but a cosmological diagram. It implies that the culture who produced it saw Earth not in isolation, but as part of a celestial tapestry. They charted not only rivers and mountains, but their relation to the heavens, reflecting an awareness that life on Earth is deeply tied to the rhythms of the cosmos. Such integration of terrestrial and celestial knowledge elevates the map from artifact to oracle, carrying wisdom that transcends time. The material basis of the original chart raises more questions. What medium was used? Was it parchment, animal skin, stone tablet, or something even more enduring? Each possibility reveals something about the makers. If stone, then the map was intended for permanence, to survive calamities and preserve knowledge for generations far beyond the life of its creators. If organic material, then its survival would be miraculous, perhaps suggesting a ritual role in which it was carefully preserved as a sacred object. Whatever the case, its endurance speaks of deliberate preservation, the conscious act of transmitting memory into the future. One of the most fascinating implications of Hancock's revelation is the distribution of knowledge. If a single map existed, it is unlikely to have been alone. Advanced civilizations would have reproduced it, shared it, perhaps even encoded it into other mediums such as architecture or oral traditions. This dispersal could explain the uncanny similarities between myths of different continents. Legends of flood survivors carrying knowledge, of culture bringers teaching astronomy and navigation, may in fact be echoes of the map's dispersal. It is entirely plausible that fragments of its information filtered into different societies, shaping their cosmologies and guiding their development. The scope of this idea forces us to rethink the role of geography in myth-making. When indigenous stories describe lands beyond the sea, mountains of fire, or hidden continents, they may not have been speaking metaphorically but recalling actual geographical knowledge inherited through symbolic channels. What seems like fable could be the residue of ancient cartographic memory, veiled in allegory but rooted in real awareness of distant lands. Hancock's unveiling casts these myths in a new light, not as quaint inventions but as coded recollections of an epoch when humanity had a far broader sense of the planet. Equally provocative is the notion of intent. Why would a civilization create such a comprehensive map? Navigation is an obvious use, but the sheer scale and detail suggest purposes beyond maritime travel. It may have been created as a teaching tool, a way to orient people in both space and spirit. It may have been used to plan migrations, to safeguard against environmental upheaval, or even to encode warnings about cyclical catastrophes. The presence of ice-free Antarctica, for example, may have been less about charting a coastline and more about memorializing a world before the floods, a reminder of what was lost and what could be lost again. The map could therefore have served as both a guide and a cautionary text, a testament to resilience in the face of planetary change. Considering the level of precision, one cannot avoid asking what tools were used. The idea of satellites or aerial photography is anachronistic, yet the map demonstrates a bird's-eye perspective impossible from sea level. This fuels speculation about lost technologies. Perhaps they mastered methods of triangulation using celestial bodies, or employed instruments long forgotten. Perhaps they had a mathematical system capable of translating astronomical observation into geographical plotting. Whatever the method, it demonstrates a leap of ingenuity we have underestimated in the ancient world. Their sophistication may have rivaled ours in principle, even if their instruments were different in form. The social dimension of such a discovery is equally rich. If a culture possessed such advanced cartography, its societal structure must have supported specialization, education, and transmission of knowledge. This implies not just gifted individuals, but institutions, guilds, or temples dedicated to study. It suggests a class of navigators, astronomers, and artisans working in concert to encode planetary awareness. In this sense, the map is not the product of a lone genius, but the culmination of collective effort, a reflection of an entire civilization's intellectual priorities. Such considerations extend into the political realm. Possession of a world map would confer extraordinary power. A society with global awareness could dominate trade, anticipate migrations, and plan settlements with strategic foresight. It could establish colonies with precision, navigate oceans with confidence, and forge connections across continents with deliberate intent. In short, it would be positioned to guide the course of human development on a planetary scale. If Hancock's revelation is accurate, it may explain how certain ancient cultures appear suddenly advanced, as though propelled by hidden knowledge. They may have been beneficiaries of this cartographic inheritance. The ethical implications cannot be ignored. If knowledge of this caliber existed in the past, its suppression or loss may represent one of humanity's greatest tragedies. To imagine that entire generations lived and died without awareness of their full heritage is sobering. It forces us to ask whether we too are inheriting an incomplete picture, with truths still buried or deliberately concealed. The unveiling of the original world map is therefore not just a revelation of the past, but a challenge to the present. To seek out what has been hidden, to restore continuity to the human story, and to guard against the erosion of wisdom in our own time. The psychological dimension is equally profound. Seeing Earth rendered so fully by ancient hands alters our sense of self. It is one thing to know intellectually that civilizations rise and fall. It is another to see proof that our ancestors may have stood on equal or greater intellectual footing. This realization diminishes the arrogance of modernity. It reminds us that progress is not guaranteed, that knowledge can be lost as easily as it is gained, and that humility should temper our technological pride. The map becomes not only an artifact but a teacher, instructing us in humility and resilience. Another striking aspect is how the map redefines exploration. In the conventional narrative, exploration is a linear process of discovery, with Europeans expanding knowledge through daring voyages. But Hancock's revelation suggests a different model: exploration as recovery. Later civilizations may not have discovered new lands, but rediscovered them, guided by inherited fragments of the original chart. This reframes the age of exploration as less about bold innovation and more about piecing together the remnants of an older, forgotten legacy. It positions Columbus, Magellan, and others not as trailblazers, but as heirs to a lineage they scarcely understood. The unveiling also prompts us to reconsider the relationship between geography and identity. If early humanity saw itself as global, then the modern divisions of nation and border are late inventions. The map reveals a time when Earth was perceived as a whole, interconnected space, where divisions were less important than continuity. Such a worldview carries lessons for today. In an era of fragmentation, the idea of humanity as one planetary family resonates with urgency. The map becomes not just a relic, but a call to unity, a reminder that our divisions are temporary overlays on a deeper, older wholeness. The possibility that the map encoded more than geography is also tantalizing. Some researchers speculate that ancient maps may have contained symbolic layers, astronomical alignments, numerological codes, or metaphysical teachings embedded within the geographical lines. Hancock's presentation invites us to look beyond the obvious and consider that the map may function as a multidimensional text. To read it properly might require not just geographic literacy, but symbolic literacy, the ability to decode layers of meaning that modern eyes often overlook. In this sense, the map is as much a puzzle as a chart, inviting interpretation and contemplation across disciplines. The act of revelation itself carries significance. Hancock's decision to present the map publicly breaks with centuries of secrecy. Whether suppressed by institutions or neglected by mainstream scholarship, the map was hidden for a reason. Its unveiling democratizes knowledge, placing a powerful artifact into the public imagination where it can no longer be controlled by a select few. This act is revolutionary in its own way, disrupting hierarchies of knowledge and empowering individuals to question official narratives. It reminds us that history is not fixed but contested, and that new discoveries can overturn even the most established frameworks. The symbolic weight of Antarctica on the map deserves special attention. Its presence as an ice-free landmass is not just a geographical anomaly, but a key to chronology. It anchors the map to a time before the Great Freeze, pointing to an epoch long before recorded history. This forces us to place the map in a deep timeline, stretching back to the cusp of human prehistory. It links the chart not only to geography, but to climate science, to the story of Earth itself. The map thus becomes a bridge between disciplines, uniting geology, archaeology, and mythology into a single narrative. Speculation naturally extends to how the knowledge was preserved. Oral tradition may have played a role, but the precision of the map suggests written or symbolic systems. Perhaps it was encoded in scripts we have yet to decipher, or hidden in the layouts of ancient temples aligned with cardinal directions. Perhaps the map itself was one of many, distributed across continents in forms now lost. The survival of even one fragment is astonishing, but it also hints that more may remain undiscovered. Sunken ruins, desert caves, or unexplored archives may yet hold additional pieces of the puzzle, waiting for those willing to look beyond conventional boundaries. The ripple effects of the unveiling extend into education. If accepted, this discovery demands a rewriting of curricula, a re-evaluation of what children learn about human history. It challenges the idea that civilization began in a handful of river valleys and grew in isolation. Instead, it suggests a legacy of global awareness, a shared inheritance of knowledge. Teaching this perspective would fundamentally reshape our understanding of who we are, instilling a sense of continuity with a deeper past. It would also inspire awe, reminding students that humanity is capable of feats far beyond what textbooks currently allow. From a philosophical standpoint, the map also redefines the concept of origin. Instead of asking where civilization began, we must ask how knowledge circulates, how it is preserved and lost, how it resurfaces in different forms. The map destabilizes linear thinking, urging us to adopt a cyclical or networked view of history. It suggests that origins are less important than connections, that what matters is not a single birthplace of knowledge, but the web of transmission linking disparate cultures across millennia. This shift in perspective is profound, forcing us to reconceive history as a dynamic living system rather than a static progression. The spiritual implications are no less significant. To hold a world map is to hold a vision of totality. For ancient people, this must have been a sacred act, a way of situating themselves within the greater whole. The map may have functioned as a ritual object, a mandala of Earth embodying both physical and spiritual orientation. It would have served not just to guide ships, but to guide souls, reminding individuals that they were part of a vast and interconnected system. In this way, Hancock's revelation reconnects us with a sacred dimension of geography, a reminder that maps can be more than tools. They can be prayers, visions, acts of reverence. The unveiling of the original world map is therefore not an isolated event, but a portal. It opens onto a new landscape of questions, each more provocative than the last. Who were the makers? How did they achieve such precision? Why was the knowledge lost, and why was it hidden? What else remains undiscovered, waiting to shatter the complacency of established history? These questions are not burdens, but gifts, inviting humanity to expand its imagination, to embrace mystery as an integral part of knowledge. The resonance of Hancock's revelation lies in its capacity to shift consciousness. It destabilizes certainty, but in doing so, it liberates curiosity. It reminds us that history is not finished, that the past is as dynamic and open to discovery as the present. It restores wonder to the human story, reminding us that beneath the surface of familiar narratives lies a vast ocean of mystery. And at its heart, the map stands as both evidence and invitation, a testament to what was once known, and a call to rediscover the depths of our forgotten heritage. The more one lingers on the significance of Hancock's revelation, the more it becomes clear that the map is not merely a record of space, but a profound statement about time. To create a chart that accurately represents continents as they once were requires a vantage that stretches across ages. Whoever produced the original design did not simply observe the world in a fleeting moment. They preserved a memory of Earth in transition. This makes the artifact not just cartographic, but historical in the deepest sense, a time capsule that preserves the geography of epochs long gone. Its value is not only in showing us where land met sea, but in demonstrating that memory can be carried through ages by means of careful inscription. The act of preserving such knowledge indicates an awareness of impermanence. The creators must have known that landscapes change, seas rise, and civilizations fall. To draw the world as it was suggests they sought to hold on to something they already saw slipping away. This awareness of impermanence is itself extraordinary, for it reflects a consciousness of history as dynamic rather than static. Ancient people are often imagined as trapped in the present, but the map suggests otherwise, that they recognized continuity and loss and attempted to preserve their knowledge against the erosion of time. The implications for cultural identity are immense. For a society to possess such a document would mean that their understanding of themselves was planetary rather than local. It would imbue them with a sense of being part of a vast, interconnected reality. That kind of identity reshapes how a people relate to their environment, to neighbors, and even to the cosmos. It grants perspective, humility, and purpose beyond immediate survival. To hold such a map would be to know one's place not only on Earth, but within the broader flow of existence. The artistry of the map also points toward pedagogy. It is easy to imagine it being used as a teaching device spread before initiates or apprentices who were instructed not only in navigation, but in the philosophy of interconnectedness. Its lines and curves may have doubled as lessons in geometry, astronomy, and proportion. Through its design, generations could be educated in the principles of harmony between Earth and sky. Thus, the map becomes more than a reference. It becomes a curriculum, a portable library of knowledge condensed into symbols. In contemplating the broader legacy of this revelation, one must also consider the resonance it has with our current technological age. Today, we rely on satellites and digital mapping systems. Yet the unveiling of this artifact reminds us that tools are only one part of knowledge. Perspective, imagination, and the will to preserve memory are equally crucial. The map proves that long before our machines, human ingenuity found ways to capture the shape of the world. That realization is not a diminishment of modern achievement, but a reminder that genius is timeless and can emerge in any era. The map revealed by Hancock stands as a bridge between worlds, between ancient and modern, between memory and discovery, between myth and science. It challenges us not only to reconsider what our ancestors achieved, but also to ask what we are doing with our own era of knowledge. Will we preserve our insights in a way that endures for millennia? Or will future generations look back on us as we now look back on those who held the wisdom of the original world map, awed by what we glimpsed and sorrowful at what was lost? This is the enduring power of the revelation, not only to illuminate the past, but to remind us of our responsibility to the future. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Graham Hancock's revealed original world map secrets? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.